2026 won't be easy for Alexandra Eala. She's not taking it easy, and she's most definitely not viewing her breakthrough season as something to be admired. Rather, she is taking on pressure head-on. Eala, who recently turned 20, is starting her new season with a 3-stop journey that subtly conveys all about her thinking. She just finished 2025 inside the top 53 of the world and won gold at the SEA Games, Australia, New Zealand, and lastly, the one Grand Slam she hasn't yet visited. This lap is not a victory lap. It's a test because a bad week could lead her momentum to stagnate, but a strong run could propel her to a whole new level. And most people are unaware of how early it all begins. However, that wasn't the entire tale. On paper, the first stop is Auckland, where the WTA 250 appears to be a typical season opener. Nothing spectacular, good points and strong competition. However, Auckland is different for Alexandra Eala. She is competing in a WDA event for the first time, as one of the top players in the field, rather than as a wild card or a dangerous outsider. She's probably seated around world number 53. Everything changes because of that one detail. She avoids the big names early since she is seeded. It implies that there won't be an instant collision with the most dangerous threats. Additionally, it signifies breathing room, which she hasn't always had at this level. Trophies are less important to athletes who are attempting to develop rhythm. Confidence is boosted by early victories. Timing is enhanced by confidence. And timing, especially at the start of a season, can snowball fast. Auckland isn't soft though, not even close. Players in the top 15 are seated at the top of the draw. Eala's position is intriguing because of the recognized threats, proven semi-finalists, and names that remind everyone that this is still the WTA Tour and not a training ground. Danger exists because she is both high enough to be revered and low enough to be ignored. However, the appeal extends beyond rankings because she recognizes many of the faces in this area. Players with whom she has previously fought, defeated, and not yet completed business. The Indonesian player she was meant to play against in the SEA Games semifinals is one of them. Actually, that contest never took place. There were unanswered questions because it ended early, and those incomplete moments tend to linger. Rematches in the early season have an odd kind of significance. There is a lot of psychological baggage but not yet any pressure from points. Who made more adjustments? Who picked things up more quickly? Who moved on? These riddles are familiar to Eala. She is not venturing into uncharted area. She is taking on the role of reminder, and people frequently ignore that benefit. Playing games is only one aspect of experience. It has to do with circumstances that were survived. Now that she has a higher ranking and more tour-level confidence, she is going over these styles, tempos, and situations again from a position of control. Auckland starts to focus more on execution than survival. Here's the twist, though. Most players would stop there. The majority would take their results, relax, and bide their time till Melbourne. Eala doesn't. Her schedule becomes fascinating at that point. Between the Australian Open and Auckland, she makes an unexpected addition. The classic Kooyong song. It appears to be merely an exhibition. There are no headlines, no prize money, no ranking points, and it is simple to overlook. But Kwong is more than just a warm-up for athletes who are familiar with tennis history. It's a declaration. One of the most recognizable locations in Australian tennis is this one. Legends have utilized this location to sharpen, feel the ground, adjust to conditions, and get into Melbourne's groove before the frenzy starts, rather than to unwind. That timing is intentional for a player who is about to make her debut at the Australian Open. Only competition, no pressure, no repercussions. Such an environment is uncommon and powerful because instinct takes over when fear is eliminated. However, the location only tells half the tale. The picture becomes obvious when you look at the names involved. There is difference, diversity, and experience on the women's side. Players with games that require modification, players who have witnessed deep runs, and players who are still working hard. This is not about taking home an exhibition trophy. It has to do with stress testing equipment. On the men's side, the lineup turns even more chaotic. They already waded into that world in Macau. Power hitters, shot makers, comeback tales, and styles that aren't on the women's circuit but nevertheless compel quicker reactions, sharper anticipation, and quicker decision-making. Unusual matchups, mixed formats, and circumstances where familiarity fades quickly, Kwang keeps up that trend. This scheduling isn't arbitrary. The exposure is regulated. Just before the most important point of her season, she is putting herself in situations that require more intensity, speed, and unpredictability. To adapt, not to impress anyone. And it matters when there is no room for error in what comes next. Because the Australian Open in Melbourne follows. The season becomes tough and quits faking between January 18th and February 1st. This is more than just another major for Alexandra Eala. It's the piece that's missing. In other places, she has already broken ground. History has already been made by her. She has already demonstrated that she belongs. However, this is the one slam that she hasn't yet entered. It is important to finish the circuit. For identity, not for statistics. She is suited to hard courts. When she timed clicks, her aggressive baseline game flourished. She has demonstrated her ability to manage pace, withstand pressure, and turn rallies around when she feels confident. She has previously prevailed in significant matches on challenging courts. Flashes of what occurs after she settles in have been shown to her. She has the opportunity to accomplish it in Melbourne, where everyone in the tennis world is watching from day one. And in this case, expectations are important. It's historic just to show up. Credibility is established by winning one game. Conversations are altered by winning 2 or 3. At that point, pressure subtly changes from exhilaration to legitimacy. Here's what differentiates her optimism from her plans though. She was ready for any eventuality. Because the season doesn't stop if Melbourne doesn't go according to plan. A backup is available. It's also not a retreat. The Philippines. Women's Open, the nation's first ever WDA 125 event. That is significant on its own. It wouldn't be damage control to go back home. It would be an opportunity to manage momentum, collect points, compete, and promote something greater than individual outcomes. She has spoken out about the significance of this tournament for Filipino tennis, its visibility, accessibility, and evidence that the game is expanding beyond isolated success stories. Manila will become an opportunity, rather than a consolation if Melbourne concludes early, and that reveals every aspect of her mentality. 1 week is not the foundation of this season. Continuity is its foundation. What does success look like then? A trophy is not necessary for success in Auckland. A victory in the opening round establishes rhythm. Another confirms form. A run to the quarterfinals indicates preparedness. Anything more than that conveys a message to the other tour participants. Success at Kooyong isn't determined by a scoreboard. Feel, timing, health, confidence, and stepping into Melbourne Park courts without being startled are all indicators of it. Every victory in the Australian Open is a step forward. One victory shows that the breakthrough wasn't a coincidence. She moves into a completely new conversation when there are 2 or 3. The important thing is that none of this calls for perfection. It requires being present. Tennis players that come prepared, flexible, and unafraid to take what's offered are rewarded in the early season. And that's precisely how this timetable is made. Something significant will be decided during this stretch. Not if Alexandra Eala has any talent. That's been resolved, but it has to be seen if her breakthrough season leads to a sense of belonging, if she continues to pursue the tour, or whether she begins to take up space on it. Because significant events don't create champions. How they follow them up determines them. Furthermore, 2026 won't wait.